You'd think that after I spared Keto's life, everything would calm down, right? That people would see my mercy as strength, that maybe the gods would smile and the war would cool. Yeah, no. The courtyard that day was divided in two. Some of my people whispered, "Our queen is wise, she seeks peace." Others muttered, "She is bewitched, she has grown weak." The council, of course, saw only betrayal. But me? I didn't regret it. Not for a second. Even though I could feel the weight of 1,000 angry stares on my back, even though I knew the elders were plotting against me. Because when I caught Keto's eyes, bound and bruised, but alive because of me, it was like the first sunrise after a storm. And for the first time in my reign, I felt like I had chosen something for myself, not just for the crown. But the council didn't forgive. Days later, I found myself locked in another argument with them. Chief Mbala's voice shook the chamber, "You dishonor the throne. The people fear your softness. If you continue on this path, Queen Amara, you will lose more than your crown, you will lose your kingdom." I slammed my palm against the war drum, the deep sound making everyone flinch. "Do you think I don't know the cost of mercy?" I spat. "Every night I hear the cries of widows, the wails of children. I know blood better than all of you. But I will not let this war consume us forever." The council hissed and muttered, but none dared challenge me outright. Not yet. Still, I could feel it. Their patience was thin as a blade's edge. That night, I went to Keto again. Yes, I know, I couldn't stay away. Judge me if you want. He looked at me like I had carried the sun into his dark heart. "You saved me," he said simply. "I might have doomed us both," I muttered. He shook his head. "No. You've planted a seed. It will grow." I laughed bitterly. Seeds don't grow in war. They get trampled under boots. But he leaned closer, lowering his voice like we were the only two souls in the world. "Not if we protect it. Together." And there it was. The word that terrified me more than any spear. Together. Because my heart wanted that. Badly. But my mind knew what it meant. If I chose him, if I chose together, I'd be turning against centuries of tradition, against my council, maybe even against my people. Still, when he touched my hand with his bound fingers, I didn't pull away. For the first time in my life, the queen in me was silent, and the woman spoke louder. The next weeks were chaos. The raiders struck harder, burning villages on the border. Refugees poured into the capital, filling the streets with cries and smoke. My people begged me to strike back, to beat the war drum until the mountains shook. The council pushed even harder, "Let us lead the army. If you will not kill their general, then at least unleash him as an example. Show your people you have not gone soft." But my heart was torn. Every time I looked at Keto, I heard his words, "Victory is when your children no longer know the sound of war drums." And then, news arrived that chilled my bones. The Northern King himself, the shadow behind the raids, the man Keto had once served, was marching south with his entire force. Not just raiders this time, but an army. Spears, horses, drums of their own. They wanted Nkam itself. Panic spread like fire. My council demanded action. My people looked to me with wide, desperate eyes. The war drum sat waiting, silent but heavy with expectation. And in the middle of it all, Keto. He told me something that night I'll never forget. "If you go to war like this, you will lose. Not because your warriors lack courage, but because your elders are blinded by pride. Let me help you. I know their strategies, their weak points. With me, you can win without drowning in blood." I stared at him, my whole body torn in two. If I trusted him, I risked betrayal. If I ignored him, I risked destruction. Either way, the crown sat heavy as iron on my head. What if I free you, I whispered, and you run back to them? He looked me dead in the eye. Then may the ancestors strike me down where I stand. I have no king but you now. The air between us felt electric, dangerous, sacred. And that night I made the choice that sealed everything. I freed him. Not in secret, no, I walked him out of that prison hut myself. The guards froze, unsure whether to raise their spears or bow. I cut his bones with my own knife and said, loud enough for all to hear, "This man is not my prisoner. He is my ally. And if any of you doubt him, then doubt me as well." Gasps. Murmurs. The council's fury burned hotter than the sun. But it was done. From that moment, Keto became my shadow. He stood beside me in war councils, pointing out the weaknesses of the enemy. He trained with my warriors, fought with them, bled with them. Slowly, some of them began to trust him. Not all, but enough. And me? Ancestors helped me, I trusted him more than I trusted myself. We would stay up late, poring over maps, his hand brushing mine as we traced the river routes. Sometimes he would pause, his gaze lingering on me, and I'd feel heat rush through my chest. Once, I caught him staring as I laughed at some small joke, and the look in his eyes nearly undid me. It wasn't just strategy anymore. It was something deeper. Something that terrified me more than war. Love. Yes, I said it. Love. The kind that sneaks up on you in the dark, when you're too tired to fight it anymore. But love doesn't erase war. If anything, it makes the stakes higher. Because now it wasn't just my kingdom I was fighting for. It was us. The invasion came at dawn. Their army stretched across the plains like a black wave, shields gleaming, banners snapping in the wind. My warriors trembled, some whispering prayers, others gripping spears so tight their knuckles turned white. The war drum sat before me, silent. Everyone's eyes on me, waiting for the signal. 3 beats would mean blood. 2 would mean defense. 1 would mean retreat. But I didn't strike it yet. Not until I turned to Keto. He met my gaze, steady as ever. "Trust me," he murmured. And for the first time, I raised the drumsticks not with anger, not with vengeance, but with hope. I beat the drum once. The sound rolled over the plains like thunder. My people gasped. 1 beat meant retreat. But instead of panic, they waited, watching me. Then I beat it again. Twice. Defense. Hold the line. But then, silence. No third strike. Because this was no ordinary battle. This was something else. Something I couldn't yet put into words. And as the enemy closed in, as my people braced for war, I prayed to the ancestors that trusting love over blood hadn't doomed us all. The plains shook with the sound of their approach. Thousands of feet pounding the dry earth, spears flashing, war songs rising like thunder. The northern king hadn't come for cattle or gold this time. He had come for my crown. For my life. For my people. And me? I stood in front of the war drum, my hands still trembling from the second strike, staring at an army that could swallow us whole. "Why only 2 beats?" one of my captains whispered harshly. "We must fight. Give us blood." But I didn't answer him. My eyes were locked on Keto. He stood beside me, tall, unflinching, his hand resting lightly on the hilt of a borrowed sword. When the council hissed behind me, when fear twisted in my belly, it was his steady gaze that kept me standing. "Trust me," he murmured again, so softly only I could hear. So I did. Ancestors forgive me, I trusted him more than my own people in that moment. The first clash came hard. Their cavalry thundered forward, horses kicking up clouds of dust. My warriors braced with shields and spears, the sound of iron against wood cracking the air. For a moment, I thought the line would break. Then Keto raised his voice, shouting commands not in the tongue of my kingdom, but in his own language. My warriors froze in shock until they saw the effect. The enemy riders faltered, confused. Their formation wavered. Keto knew their signals, their weaknesses. He backed orders, and my captains echoed him. Suddenly, we weren't just surviving, we were pushing back. I fought at the front, my spear flashing, shield splintering under blows. The air reeked of blood and dust, the cries of men filling my ears. But every time I thought I'd fall, I'd catch sight of Keto beside me, cutting through enemies with precision, moving like a river that knew its course. For the first time in years of war, I didn't feel like I was drowning. I felt like I was swimming towards something. But victory doesn't come without a price. Hours into the battle, the Northern King himself rode forward, a towering man draped in furs, his helmet crowned with antelope horns. His voice roared across the plains. Amara, daughter of drums, come face me, if you dare. The battlefield went still. My warriors looked at me, fear and hope mingled in their eyes. The council muttered behind me, warning me not to take the challenge. But I knew I had no choice. If I refused, my people would see it as weakness. If I fought and lost, everything would crumble anyway. I stepped forward, lifting my spear. I accept. The crowd roared. The duel began. He was strong. Stronger than any man I had ever faced. His blows rained down like hammers, each one rattling my bones through my shield. My arms screamed, sweat stung my eyes, but I refused to back down. I was the queen. The war drum was my heartbeat. I would not fall. Still, he drove me to my knees. My spear cracked, my shield splintered. I could taste blood in my mouth. Then, through the haze, I saw him. Keto, held back by a wall of northern guards, his voice straining as he shouted my name. Something inside me ignited. A fire bigger than fear, bigger than pain. Not just for my crown. Not just for my people. But for him. For us. I surged up with a cry, swinging the broken shaft of my spear with all the strength I had left. It caught the Northern King across the jaw, staggering him. Before he could recover, I drove the jagged wood into his chest. He fell. Silence rippled across the battlefield. Then, chaos. His warriors screamed, breaking formation. Some fled, others fought harder, but the tide had turned. My people roared, pushing forward with renewed fury. And me? I stumbled, half-blind, barely standing. That's when Keto broke through the guards and caught me before I hit the ground. You did it, he breathed, his arms around me. No, I whispered back, tasting blood. We did it. The battle raged on, but it was already decided. By dusk, the plains were littered with bodies. The northern army shattered, retreating in fragments. My people raised their spears in triumph, chanting my name. But in the shadows of the victory cries, I felt the weight of what had happened. I had killed a king. I had trusted an enemy. I had loved where I wasn't supposed to love. And now, nothing would ever be the same. The days after the battle were strange. On the surface, we had won. The northern threat was broken, at least for now. My people sang my praises, calling me Amara the Unbreakable. But behind closed doors, the council's anger simmered hotter than ever. You shame us, Chief Mbala spat during one tense meeting. You fight beside a raider. You embrace him as if he were your kin. You endanger the kingdom with your softness. I stood tall, though inside my heart pounded. That man saved this kingdom. Without him, I would be dead. Without him, the war would have devoured us. If you cannot see that, then it is you who endangers the throne, not me. The council fell silent, but their glares said enough. That night, alone in my chambers, I let myself breathe. Keto entered quietly, like a shadow, though the guards scowled at his presence. He shouldn't have been there. But he was. You risked everything for me, he said softly. And you for me, I replied. We stood there for a long time, silence thick around us. Then, without planning, without words, we closed the distance. His lips met mine, rough and desperate, like two people who had spent their whole lives fighting and finally found something worth surrendering to. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't pretty. It was raw, fierce, full of everything we'd been holding back. And when we finally pulled apart, breathless, I whispered the truth neither of us had dared speak until then. I love you. His hand trembled as it touched my cheek. And are you, Amara? From the first night you spared me. But even love couldn't silence the war drum forever. Because though we had won the battle, the council was already plotting. And I knew, deep down, that the greatest war I would ever fight wasn't against raiders or kings. It was against my own people.
Like, comment and subscribe. Winning is together.